All right, so imagine we first got here. What did you first think of it when you got here? Like you got in the base, or you landed at the airport, and you look around and you're like, man.
The first words that came out of my mouth were, it is hot. And it was only 90 degrees. Bahrain 90 degrees. Bahrain 90 degrees is different from stateside or anywhere else 90 degrees.
The humidity.
So, yeah. So I got off the plane and I was like, it felt like somebody like had a hairdryer in my face.
That's what Austin Alexander said.
Yeah, it literally felt like somebody had a hairdryer in my face the second the doors opened. And I said, wow, like, it's hot. And, you know, I get off the plane with my whole group. And, you know, I'm sitting at the airport. We sat at the airport for a while. It took a while for them to process us through because you're going to a different country, so they got to stamp your passport with your visa and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I remember like actually getting picked up at the airport by our sponsors, and there were, you know, for whatever reason in my brain I was like, oh, it's still in that A school boot camp mentality of like, oh, they're gonna be rude or just mean like they were. But, you know,
I was shocked when I came here and I found first classes and second classes you can just talk to like we're talking right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to them being like here while you're here.
Right.
It's more like this. Still above, but not like...
It was easier because, like, you know, and even in A school, like, it's supposed to be mellowed out from boot camp, but still... have a
Nobody told them that.
Yeah. It's supposed to be mellowed out, but like of course you have those people that are like, oh, I'm an instructor, so I'm gonna act like one.
Yeah.
But here, you know, they're not instructors. They're
coworkers.
They're coworkers, mentors, if you so please to have them as one. And it's just easy to talk to them. Like some are unapproachable where you're like, okay, I know my place, but like some of them you can
Yes, I may too.
Like, you know, you have that friendship still.
Yeah.
There's nothing against you being just like acquainted with someone. Like, hey man, how's it going? Like, whatnot.
Yep. Remember when we first got here, it was like, I was in E2, you were E1, right? Now you're E3 and I'm E4. We came quite a way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was quite a path to get this far. And a lot happened in only one command. It feels like it's been longer. It feels like it's been not that long. It's a strange phenomenon.
Time, especially with like our rating, the schedules you work will differ from command to command, but you lose a sense of time. You go from like, hey, I have work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right?
To a different kind of schedule.
To a different kind of schedule where you're like, I'm not counting the days anymore. I'm counting like offset, work set, offset, work set.
Yeah.
And you lose time very quickly because you're like, oh man, like we're gonna do this next offset, right? So you plan stuff for that. You don't plan stuff for days. Like you're not. I wouldn't say to anybody, hey, on the 15th we're gonna go do this. I'd be like, hey,
I've done that.
I mean, you can
to plan out ahead,
but I'll be like, hey, this offset we're gonna go do X, Y, and Z. So you lose a lot of time.
Most of the time I was here, I did not know what day of the week it was. I thought it was Sunday and it's like Wednesday. How intimidating was it to go to work for the first time? Because I was scared as heck and they're going through a bunch of information that I have no idea what they're talking about. We know nothing about quals, at least I didn't. What was your experience coming into section?
Personally, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Because it was a new environment and it was the real deal. Because everything else has just been training up until that point.
Right.
So I get into real section, like, this is, like, real people who've been in the Navy for either years or it's also their first command. They have more time over me.
Yep.
So they already know what the deal is here. But me, I'm like fresh mind. I was like, okay, and even when we were still in ASTs, we had like mock guard mounts, but it wasn't the same feel as like a real guard mount.
Yeah.
Where it's like this is it. Like your chiefs are standing there, you know, like your first class is on the side. Whoever's running guard mount is in front of you. You're all in ranks, and it was definitely terrifying and especially because you're like they gave you information to study and you're like, oh, like, you know, you're afraid because you're like,
definitions and ranges, you know, and stuff. Yeah.
No one's messing up, right? Like everyone's like given the information, and you're like, oh.
They ask you a question, and you need to know the answer to it, and everybody else is going like this, and I'm sitting there, same as him, just like, and the people start whispering the answer to you next to you,
which I'm grateful for. That people do look out for you here.
Yeah.
Like no one's an individual. We're all one. You know, one team, one fight.
Yeah.
Like as much as people hear that in the Navy, it really is like. For a lot of ratings, it is one team, one fight. Like we, you know, us MAs are not going to get through a shift or through a work set or even through the command without each other.
Definitely. So when you first get here, you got to download, if you don't have it already, Uber, and you got to download Talabat, which is the backbone of surviving here on watch, because they basically it's like DoorDash, except Indian/Arab, and one thing that I can say is that you gotta keep an extra fork and knife in your backpack, a couple of them, because if your food's delivered, like a bowl of pasta, and you got no fork, you gotta get really creative.
So with Uber, yes, I highly recommend, especially if you live on base.
Yep.
Because you're in a different country, and say this is your first command, you've never been overseas before. Mm-hmm. Getting a car is a lot different from here than getting one stateside, right? So that's confusing. So you're probably like, I don't want to do that. And then you're also going to say, I don't want to walk. So you have two options, either buy a bike or Uber.
Or a scooter.
Or a scooter. Or an electric scooter. Nothing wrong with that.
But be careful, and I would not recommend bringing your personal vehicle here, because the rain, every time it rains, it swamps the whole country, because they don't have sewers, because they don't have a lot of water, and they can't get proper water pressure. So every time it rains, it just floods the whole country. And they drive like crazy. Everybody thinks they're in Grand Theft Auto or NASCAR, and I would not recommend bringing your personal vehicle here, especially if it's a really nice one. So
if you are gonna like want a POV, say you OTEP out here, which is extending your contract out here,
yep.
I would recommend that you can purchase a car from out in town, fairly cheap. If you're gonna be using it often. Most people buy a car and then it collects dust in the parking lot.
Yeah, I've seen that. Some of those cars are caked.
Yeah, and they just collect dust. Some of the people who actually did have cars, they were out every single night. Like even if it was like after shift, they'll hop in the car, they'll go to McDonald's or something like that, and you know, and then come back. Even if it was for 10 minutes, they still use their car. So unless you're going to use it often, I would say 5 days out of the 7 days of the week.
Yeah.
If you're going to drive that much, then I recommend purchasing a car out here. You can always rent. The rentals on base are fairly cheap.
Right.
If you want a bigger vehicle though, or like a newer vehicle, it can get expensive. But if you're just wanting to do the whole little small car, you know, maybe can fit 1, 2 to 4 people, then really cheap.
Yep. So one thing that we did experience here is a increase in the size of our paychecks, because this is a tax-free zone. I don't know how many other tax-free zones there are, or if there even is one, but it's notorious that this is a tax-free area. In fact, ships used to come into this area and like breeze through it so that they would get a tax-free paycheck and then keep going, allegedly. But if you're actually stationed here, you get tax-free paychecks, and that is a huge bonus from being stateside. And we're about to take a pay cut. Plus the cola here, which is pretty good.
The cola here is very good.
It used to be better before we got here, and still...
It still is decent.
It's not bad.
For E4 and below, though, if you're OTEPing because of money, don't. Because ask one of your second classes how much they make out here.
Oh, God.
If you do end up out here.
$3,000 a check.
There's a huge wage gap between the E4s and below and the E5s and above. There's a huge pay cut. Or pay difference.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
And but it's still good money, so like I didn't mind because I saved a lot of money here. If you have debt, like a lot of debt, this is a wonderful place as well.
Yes.
If you're here specifically, like, oh, you know, I got stationed in Bahrain, right? But I have a large, almost outstanding debt. You can pay it off pretty. Student loans out here, I feel like you can pay off pretty easily.
Right.
Especially if you OTEP for the full 3 years.
They offer that bonus. Like, there's a couple different incentives for OTEPing. It's like the 30 days. Was it $2,000?
I'm pretty sure it was $2,500 and a free flight, I believe.
Yes. And then there was a third one.
So 30
It was like
days.
30 days of leave, the strictly money bonus, and then I think there was a third one. But long story short, there are incentives to extend your time here. And the number one reason to extend your time here is money. Because when you first get here, it's like this place is paradise. You know, the work is easy. The chain of command really gets off, you know, is not on your back, which can be not true for other commands. This command, you know, has a really good chain of command. But after a while, people are here for their first summer, and they realize it's 135 degrees outside, and there's sweat crying down your legs. Can we talk about the heat?
Yeah. The heat is... bad is an understatement. So I remember, like, it started last year, right? It started heating up, and around this time, around the, like,
May,
June-ish time, where it really started to get bad, right?
Yep.
So I got here in November, which was the very, very end of the summer. Yep. So it was 90s, 80s, which was still hot because I wasn't used to the climate.
Yep.
I wasn't used to that desert climate. And then it cooled down like a lot.
It got 60s.
It got almost cold. It got cold. We were wearing our fleeces to pose. We had the beanies, the watch caps.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Last time.
This last winter really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It was cold. Don't get me wrong. It was like you'd be shivering sometimes.
Yeah, what's crazy is that 60 degrees, which is like a perfect day in America, feels cold as heck here because you're used to the heat.
It feels very cold out here. Like 60 degrees here is a lot different from the States, and then the heat here is also different from the States.
Dear God.
Because I've been in 105 degree weather in the States, right?
Even in Texas, yeah.
Yeah. So when you actually come here for your first summer, deodorant, please. Like deodorant is like a must. And a lot of it, like buy it in bulk, because it's gonna melt off of you. And you walk outside and you feel wet. Like you walk outside and you're like, ooh, I don't like this, because and God forbid you have to walk somewhere.
Yeah.
You're just gonna be drenched in sweat.
All of my shirts have a ring around the armpit burnt in, and there's a picture of my frog top that's infamous, that's just completely destroyed.
My frog tops didn't get that bad.
Yeah.
But however, your uniforms fade over time, especially with heat and with sunlight. Yes. Sunlight's a bigger one. And one of my frog tops has the vest like
any silhouette, like a shadow
like a shadow of it.
Right.
The rest is all faded, and then I took it off one day, and I was like, I was sitting in the bathroom, and I was like, there's just a perfect, like,
it looks like a tank top.
It does. It looks like, I was like, it almost looks like I have a tank top underneath it.
Yeah.
And your uniforms will fade over time. Some people's looks almost white.
It turns into like snow camouflage. But that's one good thing, is because you can show you have experience here by having a faded uniform. I remember when we got to A school and we have like the dark green, like full woodland, and the chain of command and the other people who have come out from like actually being out in the service, you know, in the real world, actually standing the post, they come into A school and C school and their stuff is faded and it shows they've been around versus...
Which some commands don't like. Some commands you'll go to, they might get on you and say, hey, you need to get new uniforms because yours are way too faded. Right. And then some commands, like Bahrain, if you came here with a faded uniform, they would not care.
Right.
And some people still wear their like almost white camo, and the chain doesn't say anything. And it means, you know, you get, once like you have that faded uniform, you're almost like, you're a little saltier.
Yeah.
And you know, you go to another command and they're like, oh, your uniform's really faded.
Mm-hmm.
I came from Bahrain. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it, yeah.
Yeah, I know, like World War II, people would actually fade their uniforms on purpose to show they're more experienced or have been in the desert longer. And here, you can see people have like their covers one color, then their blouse is like a little bit lighter,
yep.
And then their pants are like white, and it's like 3 different shades from head to toe.
Boots too. Some of the boots will be
right.
like just be like either like I've seen destroyed boots, like people are like the soles are falling off of it.
Yep.
And I've seen brand new boots.
They got like, the soles starting to go like this. Yep. But the heat is no joke, and people do not look forward to it coming in and rejoice when it's over. The rain. Let's talk about the rain.
So
second death season.
I have a personal experience of 2 times about the rain.
Yep.
So one of them was from around January, February time of 2022 to 2023, and one recently, a few months ago. Mm-hmm. The rain gets so bad here, and there's no drainage systems.
Right.
So no matter what it is, no matter if it's winter, summer, fall, or spring, you will man the watch. Mm-hmm. Like that is for us. It does not matter what weather it is outside. It could be a tornado outside, a hurricane, and we're still manning that post.
Yep.
And in this case, it was severe thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm in my post, and at the time, there were cones set up, so I had to go and move cones for this specific post. One of the cones was in shin deep water.
Oh no.
So I was like, well, there's no tiptoeing around the water to try to grab this cone.
Yeah.
So I just walked through it. And you know, my first class and second classes are coming by, and they're like getting out, and they're looking at my pants, and it's literally like shin down.
Oh my God. And
they're like, why'd you walk through that? I need to move the cone. Don't do that anymore. Please. Yeah. And one of them was laughing at me. He said, yeah, I saw it on your face, the point of no return, where you step through it and your socks are wet, your pants are wet, everything's wet, and you're just like, what can you do now?
Gotta do the job.
You gotta do the job. So they told me just to move the cone to the side, and that's it. And I wish they gave me a new pair of socks, because that day was rough. But, you know, a little water doesn't hurt nobody. I know some people would be like, oh, I don't want to get my boots wet. Me, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, if my boots get wet, they get wet. I stood all 12 hours with wet boots and with wet socks.
You were kicking the wall in anger, which I would be doing much more than that. I would be doing more than that. I was MA1, I'm out of here. You know,
I was kicking the water, trying to get the boots out of the water out of my boots.
Oh my goodness. So this happened a second time.
Yes. Yeah. So it just so happened, it was a coincidence, honestly, that I remember I went to the same post and it was raining outside, and my first class comes up to me and he's like, does this give you any flashbacks? I was like, yeah, it does. I'm in the same exact predicament I was back in 2022, 2023. And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. And I said, no, you said that last time too. Thankfully, he brought a change of socks around, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I still didn't change my socks that day. I waited till I got home, showered. And then I changed my boots out entirely, which I still have to clean because it looks like I got in a fight with a construction site and I lost. So there's like mud on my boots. Mm-hmm. And it might be a lost cause, honestly.
Nah, you
try to clean them.
As long as they aren't like torn,
no,
you can just throw them into the washer.
Yeah, I figured, but I just haven't yet.
Yeah, I did that today with mine. You gotta wash the Bahrain off of them. But yeah, did you ever have a moment of like reflection? Because I remember I was just walking somewhere, and I kind of like stopped and looked around for a minute. I'm like, I'm in the Middle East. Like, this is kind of cool.
What got me when I got here was I needed something. I needed something like I forgot what it was for, but I needed something from the store, right?
Yep.
And my brain wasn't like, I'm going to the Next. My brain said, I'm going to Walmart. I walk outside, I stop, I look at the sky. Oh yeah, I'm in Bahrain. At this time, it was the sandstorm season, where all the sand was getting blown around. So I stopped, and it had its own like little natural tint. Like, well, you know, like in movies where like they predict them, like they put like a yellow filter over like Middle Eastern scenes.
Yeah.
That's like that in real life. Like people are like, oh, why do they do that? It is when there's a sandstorm, it gives almost like a yellowish tint in the sky, and you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing that is the same as like boot camp and A school is that when a whole group of like MAs come together and arrive somewhere, they throw all their backpacks against the wall, and all of them look the same. But what I did is to distinguish my own backpack from others is to put a couple clips on the handle to make it look different. Other people put patches on theirs, and other people buy new backpacks. But I didn't see the reason to spend $50 for a new backpack when we still have the one from boot camp. Like, what did you do in that situation?
So I had a different backpack because with most of my stuff, I'm very like maximalist. Like I love a lot of items.
Yeah.
With my gear, with my room, like I love just a lot of decoration. So I had a different backpack that can display a bunch of patches.
Right.
And I used to have like one a patch that was like all yellow and it had the blue Navy text and a couple other patches. And someone looked down at my backpack and said, "Who's this motivator right here?" And I ripped it right off my backpack.
Yo, okay.
And so I have a backpack with one Velcro strip, and from that point to last week on my backpack, I have a patch that says "In God We Trust." And that's how I always knew that was my backpack. Because I just look at the front, I could see my white patch on the front. Okay, that's mine.
Yep. You gotta be careful though, because some people steal patches. One of our coworkers had a Baby Yoda on his, and somebody. So you gotta be careful. I thought about if you have patches on there, just sew them on there so that somebody can't just tear them off.
You can, but I feel like that's a lot of work for a $2 patch I can buy on Amazon.
Well, some of them are custom though.
Yeah, as well as that's true. Like I do have my custom name tape, but
yep.
I'm not gonna go because I can make it on Amazon for probably the same price that I bought it here. So
wow.
It isn't the end of the world for me if somebody steals. If they steal my backpack, that's a different thing. But if they steal just the patch,
it's not that big of a deal.
It's not a big deal. But now the backpack, with all my items in there, yeah, that's a problem.
If somebody just arrives here, do you recommend like kind of feeling things out for a while before jumping into quals besides patrol? Or do you recommend that someone kind of rushes into it?
So if you're looking
to,
if you're one of those people that you're like, because of me, like I have a be the best mentality. Like I want to be the top person. Like I want to be on top. I want to be better than these people.
Yeah.
I want to be an example, like a good example. And if you have that same mentality as me, where you know you're gonna stay in the Navy, and you're gonna have more of a career rather than just do my 4 and get out.
Yeah.
I do recommend you just climbing that, doing whatever you can to just be the best. Because it's simple. Get all the way qualled, and they'll say, oh, they'll start using you as an example. So like if a second class is underqualled, hey, well, MA whatever is qualled to watchcom, and you're not.
Yeah.
Somebody 2 pay grades below you is showing out. Is showing out here compared to you. Like you need to get on top of your game. You can't be outqualled by a seaman apprentice, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or third class even. So if you like want to make this a career, you feel like this is what you want to do with your life, then get qualled, be the best, and come out on top, because you can get really good benefits from being the best.
Yeah. But once you actually get qualified, you get better posts too.
In some cases, yes, and also some cases you may you may stand that post like everybody else, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though you're the best, you complaining and also trying to be the best doesn't work.
No, you're not gonna make any friends complaining. That's
so. If you're like, oh well, MA1, I'm qualified higher than some second classes, so why am I standing these bad posts? Because what, you're too good for that now? And
yeah.
Don't try to dismiss don't forget where you came from.
What kind of stuff do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got here?
I would say quals. Because I remember I took way too long on most of my quals.
Mm-hmm.
I would have months in between my quals when some people would go back to back to back to back.
Because they stack right on top of each other.
Yeah.
Like the knowledge for one is for the next one. And if you just go bing, bing, bing,
it's just back to back to back to back. But for me, I waited and I waited and I waited because I didn't want to go for the next qual. And then you know, my mentors and the people around me would be like, no, go to the next qual. Like, you need to. Like, you should. You're smart enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they would push me. I would go for the next qual. They even tried to push me to get even more quals, but
I'm leaving.
I'm leaving.
Sorry.
It's like, yeah, I'm leaving in like 4 months. I would be no use to to that. And then now, obviously, I'm not getting any quals because
11 days left.
Yeah.
So, bye-bye. So this command won, I think it was the best galley in the Navy, or it at least won the award for one of the best galleys in the entire Navy. And that was like a big event and everything. So congratulations to them. The food is pretty good. What do you think of the galley here?
I think it's pretty good. It has a lot of options. I really do like how they can pertain to anybody. Like, say you don't want this, but they make like sandwiches, or they have extra like things available, and especially like people on diets,
vegetarians.
Yeah, they have a vegetarian option. You know, they it's all inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that not a lot of places like can say. It's almost set up like buffet style almost.
Yeah. So they'll even have like, on a certain day they'll have like a chicken and then chicken without corn next to it if you don't want to have that. And they'll have like vegetarian options right next to the same thing but with meat in it. It's pretty accommodating because they understand the diversity of people who are trying to lose weight, people that are trying to gain weight.
Or even people who have religious exemptions.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Some people don't eat meat.
Yep.
For religious purposes. So, you know, it's all inclusive for them. They make sandwiches if you're not really feeling any of the meals that they made.
Yep. On certain days, they'll serve steak, lobster, and shrimp. Yep. There's Mongolian, there's tacos, and all of it's pretty good quality, actually.
Yeah, no, like, no doubt that. And I like the special days they have, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not the same thing, just like, oh, here's chicken, here's beef, whatever. Have a good day. Jack Link's Slim Jim and Core Power protein shake tastes like cilantro together.
Okay. And with that note, we're back. Well, we'd like to appreciate you coming on. I'm just kidding. All right. So there's a couple of things to do off base that we've discovered, some of which we've done together, some of which we've done with our friend groups. One of them is go-karting. There's the water park we went to, but the water park is lower water pressure than you would find in America. But it was still a lot of fun.
I wouldn't say that.
Dude, I went to Noah's. You've been to Noah's Ark in Wisconsin?
I have not, no.
It's the largest water park either in the country or the world. And the water's like, and they got like the freaking giant water slides. And then I got here.
See, so I always tell people, like, when doing something out in town, right, that's compared to the U.S.
Yeah.
I tell them to lower their standard a little bit.
To quote,
it may not be what you're used to. So if you grew up in Florida and there's like, hey, we're going to an amusement park, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to be like Disney World or Universal. That's why like some water parks can be huge, and people are like, oh man, like this is like you could be there all day and still not ride everything.
Yeah.
Here, it's a lot smaller, but I'm used to those smaller water parks like that. Because where I'm from, water parks are there's two. There's only two. That's it, and they're small.
South Carolina.
South Carolina. They're very small, and that's what I'm used to. So it actually was pretty much perfect from what I'm used to back home. It has a wave pool, a couple slides, and a big lazy river. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm used to.
And that's what they had here. And the wave pool was actually pretty nice because it was just like, you know, it was that was pretty close to what you expect from America, even at Wisconsin Dells. And the lazy river was fun, and they were probably more lenient about people paddling around without a raft or an inflatable, which might not be allowed at another water park. But the slides were pretty good. It was pretty good. And go-karting, it's on like the same place they have the right next to the Grand Prix, the international circuit. So that was pretty cool. There's a couple of forts here. There was one built by the Portuguese and stuff.
If you're a history buff, you know, these forts and stuff like that, definitely. There's a few museums as well.
Yep.
If that's what you're into, Bahrain definitely has it.
I didn't go to the museums. They were not recommended to me.
They weren't recommended to me either, but I heard they were pretty nice.
Yeah.
Something definitely worth taking a look at.
Yes. And for the other side of the coin, there's a lot of clubs, a lot of places to go drinking,
a lot of bars.
It's a good buffets.
There's a lot of good restaurants too. If you're really like a foodie and you really like to explore out of your comfort zone when it comes to food, Bahrain definitely has that. You could try the local food, local Bahraini food. You can try Lebanese food. There's even some Asian restaurants, Korean barbecue, Japanese food.
Okay. So one thing is that this country is like, for being in the Middle East, it's not very Arab. This country is like mostly India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Asian countries, and they brought their food with them.
Yeah.
So what kind of restaurants, which restaurants by name would you recommend for people coming here?
So if you're looking for something because there's a lot of franchises here. There's a lot of stuff that you're used to in the United States. We have this one just straight strip of land called American Alley.
Right outside the base.
It's right outside the base, and there you'll find McDonald's, Papa John's, Hardee's, all the like restaurants you're used to in the United States. But if you're going down all the way down, and if you want to try something that's not from the United States, there's a Japanese restaurant called Kabuki.
Yep.
It's expensive, it's a little pricey, but
it's worth it.
It's high quality food, and I would definitely recommend it for the people that just got here or that are coming to Bahrain. That's one restaurant that I say you should look out for. Mm-hmm. There's also some, I forgot the name of where it was, but there are some pretty good like sports bars. You know, if you want to eat some wings, watch the game, and it definitely appeals to those who, even if you don't drink.
Yep.
If you want to go there, watch the game, you can.
There's a couple Korean barbecue places. People usually go to a place called Seoul Restaurant, but there's another one that's cheaper and yet somehow better.
Yeah.
Which was...
it's called Da Rejang.
Yes.
And it was a little hole in the wall that a few of us found. I found out from somebody in Delta section. Mm-hmm. And they were like, because I was telling them we spent like so much money at Seoul.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, there's this other place. Oh, really? Where's it at? Oh, it's this location. Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll go check it out. And
when we first got there, it didn't look that impressive, but the interior decorations are not all there. But you're not eating the decorations, you're eating the food, and the food was great. So
I feel like with the decorations, you knew that food was gonna slap. Like you knew.
Like, why are there minions on the wall?
There's minions on the wall. It says some like English words that is definitely translated from Korean, and a bunch of old Lego sets of like the Eiffel Tower and Hogwarts. And you're like, it doesn't make any sense, but this food's about to hit.
Yeah, it's like, you know what?
This food is about to be the best meal that I've had ever.
There's one thing is that alcohol is going to be very expensive here.
Yes. So if you are an avid drinker, I would recommend that you get your alcohol from on base.
Yep. There's a system to do it on base.
I'd rather than going off base, because the off base liquor stores are very expensive, very pricey, and even bars and clubs, your alcohol is going to be like a few BD a shot, which one BD is $2.65.
Mm-hmm. Well, it fluctuates.
But around that.
Whenever I come up with a price, like if you go into a store and see on the shelf something is 2 BD, I just multiply it by 3, so 2, 4, 6. Oh, it's $6. And it's gonna be weird to go home and see something on the shelf for 2, and not multiply it. Yeah.
Well, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna try, and you're gonna be like, no, that's too expensive, and then you're like, oh right, I'm back in the U.S. Or whatever country that you're going to next.
You can't get tricked by the conversion rate either, because if you see something cost 1, something else costs 2 and 3, and you kind of throw them into your shopping cart and throw it, and you buy it, and then you look at your bank account and like $89 was spent, you got to be cognizant of the conversion rate, because things can look cheap because it's like 12, and then you come home and see you spent $40.
Right, so like $100 is about 37 BD. So, you know, you're going out to eat, right, or whatever. You go to a restaurant and you're like, oh man, 37? Probably cheap. And then you pay it, and then you look at your bank account and you just spent $100 on one trip out.
Yeah.
Which some restaurants, like some places, if you're an avid drinker or if you like to eat food and stuff like that, you want to try a lot of things, you can get up that high with that price.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks sometimes, and then sometimes you're like, I saved up for this because I knew already.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do. I would save up and be like, all right, this money is going to go I'm going out for the weekend. This money is going out, and then save the rest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I did was whenever a check would land, I would shave off the top right as soon as it landed what I was already planning on saving. And then whatever's left in there, hey, it's fair game.
Yeah.
Like whatever's left after that is like whatever's left. Because I already saved what I want to save anyway.
I told one of my first classes that he was like, how much money are you saving here? And I said half of my paycheck.
That's a lot.
And he said, half? He's like, that is a lot. That's great. And in reality, I was saving 90% of my paycheck.
Yeah.
Literally, I would we'll just say my paycheck was about $1,300.
Mm-hmm.
$1,300 to spend.
Man, that's really good. I think it was like a survey a couple of years ago that 40% of Americans can't afford a surprise $400 expense, and yet in the military, some people save like massive amounts of money, and it's kind of like an unseen benefit because some people like me and maybe you just have no bills. Like as a civilian, half my pay was bills, and the other half was like trying to survive with it. And here it's like, yeah, we're going to save 80-90% of our pay.
Yeah, because like the only bill I have is my phone bill.
Yep.
And that's only $80 a month for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only expense. And then of course like stuff on my phone, like Apple Music, whatever expenses I have on there. But other than that, there's no major bills. Like I don't have rent, I don't have a car payment, I don't have insurance.
Yeah.
Like I'm not paying for all that.
One thing I'll say is that for the American chains like KFC, McDonald's, there's one Taco Bell in the whole country that's on the base, and you can see that on Google Maps.
It's not even a Taco Bell, it's a Taco Bell Express.
Yeah.
It doesn't even serve everything that you would get at a traditional Taco Bell.
The cheesy gordita crunch is sadly missing.
The Baja Blast is the thing missing from
man. There's no Chick-fil-A here. That hurt.
11 days.
We're counting now. We got scratch marks on the walls. We're going to go home to Walmart and Target. But no. So what I'm trying to say is that the American chains that are here, it's like, even though it's the real chain of that restaurant, it's like 20% off. Like the flavor is slightly off for some reason.
Personally, I think they do it better. They do a better job because you go to McDonald's in the States, right? Like, yeah, let me get a cheeseburger and a large fry and a drink, right?
Yeah.
Out here, mind you, the McDonald's is pretty decent sized. You walk in there and you can get everything that you get in the States. It's hot, fresh, and they sell cake for whatever reason.
Yeah, for some reason it's like a little glass container with like pastries.
Yeah, there's pastries, cake. There's whole cakes. Like there's there's like Danishes, like cake pops, and I was like, this isn't even a McDonald's anymore. Like what? Like there's only like one McDonald's in the states that like has like sells full cake.
Yeah.
But here, they do all that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the restaurants, the chain restaurants out here, they do it a lot better than the States because it's hot, fresh, nothing's broken. The ice cream machine works.
Never had a problem with that in America, but I hear that all the time. They're just too lazy to clean it, allegedly. But I will say
McDonald's.
The KFC here is noteworthy. I've been the #1 customer. I think I'm personally responsible for keeping the KFC.
Yeah, you're
in business here. But for some reason, there's no mashed potatoes, and
no biscuit.
And the biscuit is also missing. It's just a bun instead, which is also good. But I want my biscuit. But
they don't know about all that.
Yeah, I think they understand. Like you said, that with McDonald's, I think they understand that with the American chains, they do their best because they know the #1 customers are Americans, and if they mess it up and the word gets around, hey, there's a McDonald's here, but it's not as good as back home, then nobody's going to show up. So I don't know. Personally, I think it's like 10 to 15% kind of off, but it's still really good, but like off than I remember. But the KFC is really, really close to back home if you want a taste of home. But no Chick-fil-A, no Chipotle. There's a couple places that are missing.
There's a couple places that mimic kind of how that is, but there's one called Calexico. That's my personal favorite restaurant. It's a little pricey, but
we should go there.
It is very good. It's called Calexico. It's a Mexican restaurant. It's a Tex-Mex fusion, and it is one of my favorite restaurants.
So it's trying to be Chipotle, or is it trying to be something else?
It's trying to be like almost bigger than Chipotle. Like it's a sit down restaurant, and it's like you order a specific thing, but you can do add-ons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's the closest like Mexican restaurant that I've gotten, or something that's like Tex-Mex like Chipotle is.
It's kind of hard coming from Texas to here because there's suddenly a missing Mexican flavor, but it's around, but it's like not as strong.
There's certain places where you will find that, like Calexico is one of them, where you're like, wow, this is Tacos Muchachos is another. Like there's places on Talabat, there's places out in town, you can go to them, and it's like, wow, this is almost like a little taste of home almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do recommend trying like Lebanese food. Shawarma. Shawarma is one
great.
of my favorite things out here.
How would you describe shawarma? Like a pita bread taco kind of?
It's almost like it's not on pita bread. It's like sal bread or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that like bread with your choice of meat. So it's mainly either beef or chicken. With sometimes lettuce, tomato, fries, and then typically it's served with garlic sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would get like a side of fries as well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things out here.
For some reason, the French fries here are way crispier than back home, and I love that.
They do it right. Yeah. Like these places, like they put a lot of love in their food.
Yeah.
Compared to the States where you're just like, oh, there's a lot of people in line, get out.
Here's another order, bing.
Yeah.
Also for McDonald's, there are things on the menu there that are not on the menu back home, like the McArabia, the Big Tasty, which I didn't personally enjoy, but the McArabia is good. A chicken Big Mac, that's another one.
The chicken Big Mac. Like there's some like exclusives to the country, which But McDonald's is known for that anyway. They do a lot of like like McDonald's in Italy serves this, or McDonald's in wherever serves this.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. They just have some Arabic twang to it.
Yep. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, and it's our final day of work. How does it feel? It feels fake.
I agree. It didn't feel like it was my last day.
Yeah.
Like we went to work.
I was so happy. I was sitting in my chair
I was sitting in my chair like a little boy. He was oddly happy for it. Like normally he'd come into work. Hi. What's up, man? Sit down. Wait for them, to do guard mount.
Sit there like this.
But for some odd reason, he was giddy, like a little kid in a candy store. Like he was like, yeah, hey, so and so that I don't ever talk to. It's my last day. Hey, so and so that I'm not really friends with. It's my last day. And then I'm sitting in the chair just watching this unfold. Just watching him go around to person to person. It's my last day.
I talked to them on post, but I was never like, hey, everybody, you know.
He's kicking his feet in the chair, like swinging his feet.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, what's up with you?
So they're putting something in the galley food or something. Yeah. So we've been doing this since day one, March 29th, 2022.
For me, March 28th.
And yeah, we arrived the day before.
I arrived the day before you did.
And graduated. We were in the same division, go through A school, C school, and now our entire first command. But we're now going to separate places.
Yes.
And we don't need to mention where.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention where, but we are taking we are separating.
Yes.
From being with each other for.
Yeah. So that means you're
past 2 years.
That means in the divorce filing, you're gonna get half the channel. And
let's go.
So we gotta tear this flag in half.
But no, not the assets.
Yeah.